everybody. A warm welcome to Wisdom from North, the place where we're diving into the deeper meaning of life and asking the big questions. My name is Janneke, and today I'm just so thrilled to be having Evette Rose back on my show again. Now, Evette is a personal development teacher, a trauma release practitioner, and the author of this amazing book, 700 pages, Metaphysical Anatomy. Your body is talking to you. Are you listening? She's also the founder of Metaphysical Anatomy process. She has traveled to 38 countries and helped more than 6,000 people worldwide. Hello, Evette. It's awesome seeing you again.
Hi.
How are you?
Yay. Good. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm so excited.
Yes, and I'm so excited too because I met you 2 months ago. We had this wonderful conversation on Skype with Teal Swan about...
Oh God, that was fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We hadn't met each other before, and I loved it, and it was really popular. I think people liked that we delved into health issues, and also that we had great chemistry. It was really wonderful.
We absolutely, and we also asked the hard questions that people normally duck and dive during interviews because, you know, sometimes there are very hot topics. And not everyone wants to go there, fear of, you know, oh my God, what's people going to think? Well, you know, it's my job. So let's talk about it, you know?
Yes. And I thought, and I talked to Teal later, and she was like, you just got to do an interview with Evette. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to.
Teal's awesome. I love Teal. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would love to hear today more about your actually method, the MAP method.
Sure.
And also how we can take ownership of our lives, because I know that's something you talk about a lot. And it sounds like, oh yeah, sure, easy, but I don't feel it is that easy.
No.
And also I would love actually to start by hearing your story, because I think it's so inspirational when we hear a personal development teacher tell us about their story, because you have had a long journey, and that is something we can be inspired by. And I know that you had a tough journey, and you're a completely different place today.
I sometimes joke and I tell people that I feel like I'm 80 years old because of all the bumps and everything that you go through. You just kind of get to that place where you're just tired. But then it's also just what I realize is it's just the physical body that also just needs time to heal. Because when I started my healing journey, I was so excited. I was just like, go, next seminar, next technique. What am I going to do now? And though emotionally and spiritually, I was shifting. Everything was happening the way that I wanted to. What I didn't realize at the time was that, so the computation neurons that's here in the frontal lobe that absorbs everything that's happening in the present moment, in the here and now, it's like, yeah, let's do this. This is awesome. I can see where we need to fix things. You know, let's feel better, because if you do that, then this is going to have a positive ripple effect. But the unconscious mind has a little bit of a retarded response. It's almost like, because that's where all the memories, that's where we hold the memories of all the bad things that happened, the trauma that happened. You know, if you see something and it reminds you of a bad incident, it's like, okay, you know what? That's kind of like an anchor point there. But the computation neurons will be like, oh, don't worry about that. That's fine. We're not going to stress about that event anymore. But the unconscious mind doesn't get that, because it's still set in that motion of trying to protect you. So here you have the computation neurons and everything that's happening here going, like, let's fix this. And the unconscious mind's like, I'm coming. Like
slow motion.
Yeah, right? Because it's like it's sussing out, you know, like a chameleon. They walk like this. And that's the unconscious mind. It's like looking around, is this okay? Okay, I get it. There's the fly, like there's the competition, or everything is going ahead, but it's like I'm still checking out if everything's okay, because it's my job to keep you alive. Because the unconscious mind is connected not just with old memories that happen, it's very much connected to the survival instincts, which is the reptilian brain.
Right.
And all these other things that sit in the nervous system as well. So when I made that joke of like, I feel like I'm 80 years old, that was my unconscious mind and my body just going like, Evette, time out. Just time out. You don't always have to fix everything. Just give me time to breathe. Give me time to catch up. Because that's also why when I do sessions with people, the moment at the end of the session, I tell them, give yourself 7 days to integrate. Because the computation neurons, normally they would feel a little bit confused, a little bit like, whoa, what's happening? That's the computation neurons finally, and the mirror neuron transmittal pathways, everything is already starting to reprogram themselves. Everything needs time to integrate once all the different points in the body has released the trauma and the memories of that. not completely the memories because you still remember what happened, but the emotional stress that's been feeding the body, the adrenaline, the cortisol, everything starts to calm down. But then you have that transition period where the neural pathways and everything just needs to reprogram themselves with the new emotional states, which is positive, that starts to come up. And it's like, where's my dose of toxicity that used to feed me every day? Like, why don't I feel angry? Why don't I see all these bad things anymore? So there's a bit of a whole overhaul that's happening, and the body is integrating the physical aspect of that as well, because you don't just feel, when you stress, it's not just emotional stress that affects you. Your body is taking a physical, figure of speech, beating as well because of the tensity, the contraction that you feel. Sometimes when I work with people that's been emotionally, physically abused, I tell them, please take a day off after the session because you're going to want to sleep the whole day. And that's what happens every single time, because the body finally realizes that, oh my God, I'm not in danger anymore. I'm not stressed anymore. I don't have to hold on to all these traumatic memories in order to keep me safe, in order to stop it from happening again. I can hold on to the memories to keep me safe, but I don't need the emotional charge and stress and that whole concept of living in fear anymore. I don't need that. And the body's like, oh my God, really? Oh, ooh la la, let's sleep, let's relax. And everything just relaxes. The fascia relaxes, the muscles relaxes, the adrenals relaxes, the adrenals goes like, I can breathe.
Oh, it sounds amazing.
I can relax.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So look at your face. I love it.
Oh.
But that's exactly the process. But that's the process. That's exactly what happens.
Okay.
And that's the delayed response where the body needs time to catch up. And I can't stress enough to people, you have to give your body that time to just catch up. Just because emotionally you feel fine, that's great. That's awesome. But God, be kind to your body, because your body has been the vehicle that's been running through this whole process. And suddenly it's realizing, I don't have to run anymore. I can walk. I can sit down. I can relax. I don't have to worry about something that's going on behind me. I don't have to worry about something bad that's going to happen maybe tomorrow, or who's going to walk into the door and scream at me. I don't have to stress about that. Awesome. So the body starts to learn how to cope and live in a completely new way.
I want to
so it's the body.
More into that later, but I still want to go back to your story, how you were able to.
So the story, yes. So and that's kind of like the realization that I had when I said that I felt so old, and I'm like, okay, Evette, well, this was years ago when my healing journey started. And that's kind of all this thought process that went through my head and how everything started. So that's kind of giving you a bit of a foundation as to what I'm building up to. And so what happened was, way back before I started my healing journey, I was smoking 30 cigarettes a day. I was working at a place that was across from a pub. So alcoholism is so intense in my family. Like, it's almost like I didn't even have a chance to not have it, right? Because I had an oversensitivity to that. One glass of wine and that's it. You're done. I was hooked. And that comes from my dad's side and my mom's side as well. So at the time, I would go lunchtime, I would go have a double shot of vodka just to calm down and have my 30 cigarettes a day. And I was running 3 different jobs. I was used to living a very high stressed out life. And that all started with my dad telling me when I was 15 that you will become nothing. You will just be a little whore. That's exactly what he said to me. And you will vomit off the pubs and off the floors. And I'm like, and he was drunk when he was sitting on the couch when he said that, but it stuck with me. Something in it just went, excuse me? That's what you see from me? Because I see something else. And I made it my life mission to prove him wrong. So I said to him, watch me, before I'm 20 years old, I'm going to have a BMW. I'm going to earn more money than you. And long story short, that's exactly what happened. I was 19. I bought a brand new BMW. I earned 3 times more his salary. And he was like a chief buyer in a very big international company in South Africa at the time, but he lost his job and many things went wrong. And I worked myself to the point where I was hospitalized for 2 days for exhaustion because I was working so hard to just prove him wrong. And I stayed in that emotional state of, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to prove you wrong. I can do this. I can do this. And amongst all the trauma and the stress from my childhood that I didn't resolve, that I didn't even want to look at, I knew it was there, but I just kept working. I kept running. I became so addicted to my work to relieve the stress, gymming, anorexia, everything that I got into, I became obsessed with it because that was my escape. That was my way of escaping things that I just didn't want to deal with. And that included the smoking. It included the alcoholism. It included the working too much. I worked like 85 hours a week. So there was no time to just have a life, but my body would every now and then say, we need to stop. And that would mean a hospital visit. But when I get out, I would keep going again. And when I was 20, in my early 20s, my body, my hair started falling out. I could feel my bones were very brittle when I moved to Australia, and I had a medical checkup. The doctor's like, listen, your bones are very brittle. You need, whatever it is that you're doing with your diet, you need a serious overhaul. I didn't listen. I just kept going because I was so focused on not feeling. I didn't want to feel. So I kept diving and delving myself into, that, hence why I ended up with 3 jobs at the same time in one company. I had 3 different roles. It was perfect for me because I just didn't want to stop. And I literally drove myself in an emotional state. I drove myself so much into the ground where I didn't have a life. I didn't have friends. I had nothing. I had nothing to live for. It's just get up, work, go home. I was in a very abusive relationship at the time, physically abusive as well. But because of my childhood, that was normal to me. I didn't know that I deserved anything better than that. It didn't even enter my mind. That was life. It was a lifestyle. Abuse became a lifestyle. Just like depression can become a lifestyle, it was the same with the abuse. So, and I was stuck in that relationship, but something in me just started clicking, and I started feeling this need to change, but I didn't know what, I didn't know how. I didn't understand the messages that I was getting. So, and long story short again, I just woke up one morning, and I woke up I've never in my life felt like that. The only 2 times that I did was when I was in my early teens, when I tried to commit suicide twice. It was that same feeling that I had. And I'm like, oh no, here we go again. And I woke up with that heavy, heavy suicidal feeling. And I remember my cigarettes were on the side of the bed, and I reached over to it and I lit a cigarette, and I was lying there in bed thinking, today is it. Today I make a change, or today I'm done. I was just so done. I remember my body was shaking, like I was going into, I wouldn't say convulsions, but just when you're so tired, your body goes into shock. And I started shaking from exhaustion. I was just lying there thinking, this is not a life. My life hasn't even started, and I feel like I'm done. What am I going to do the next few years? What is that going to look like if my life was already such a mess? And I'm like, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to be like this in 5 years. I don't want to be like this in 10 years. And I was lying there thinking, what is your life going to look like if you do make a change today? What can it look like in 5 years? What can it look like in 10 years? And just that slight change of mindset where I was thinking, what can it look like if I do make a change? I'm like, I choose that path. I'm going to give it one last shot. I have nothing to lose. I have pretty much ticked all my bucket lists because I was so proactive in doing everything I wanted to do. I got everything that I wanted. And I'm like, there's nothing left else to work for. There's nothing else to live for. But I'm going to live for this moment where I can maybe have what I just saw. If I do make a change, I can have the house. I can have a great partner. I can have all these things that I want. But I have to make a change. Nothing is just going to happen by itself. Divine intervention exists. But even if divine intervention comes your way, what you do with that divine intervention determines if it's going to be a good or a bad intervention. And I realized I'm not going to lie here and wait for intervention. Nothing's going to be handed to me in a silver platter. And even if it does, you can still mess it up because it's all about your mindset. What you're going to do with that amazing second chance. And I'm like, I'm not going to lie and wait for it. I'm going to create it. And you're going to laugh at me. I got up, and back then, back in the day, just like these big computers with the big screens and those clunky keyboards and stuff, right? And I was sitting with a cigarette, and the ash is falling on the ground as I'm walking to the computer. And I was so upset, and I threw a vodka. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. I just called the office, said, I'm done. I'm not coming in. I don't know when I'm going to come back, but it's not going to be today. And I sat in front of the computer, and I opened up Google, and here I'm sitting. And you know what I typed? How to be happy. Because that's all that I wanted. I'm sitting there, and I'm like, what do you want, Evette? Yeah. I'm like, you know what? I just want to be happy. I just want to know what it feels like to smile and be happy and really take in a day of being outside, being able to, I see the trees, but I'm not present with it. I see people in my life that care about me, but I don't care about them because I'm so emotionally focused on these goals that I've set for myself, all this artificial nonsense that actually doesn't have any value at the end of the day. That's where I was, because emotionally I was too scared to open up. That was the real reason. It's not that I didn't really care. It's just I was so emotionally unavailable that I just couldn't even go there. I just couldn't. Intellectual conversations, hang out, that's fun, but emotionally, forget it. And I typed in how
you're giving like a really clear question to the universe, like saying, I want to be happy. You know, it's a really clear statement and a moment.
And I wasn't specific, nothing. I just wanted to be happy. I was ready for my breakthrough. I was ready for my chance. It's my turn. You know, something needs to change here. And so I Googled how to be happy. And Doreen Virtue came up and all these angel stuff and seminars and all these things. And I'm like, oh, and I started buying all these books and crystals and I started playing with it. And I could feel the energy moving and shift, and everything I was practicing and playing with. My partner at the time said, oh my God, you should go read the Bible, Evette. You know, you're starting to pray to rocks. That sounds to me like Satanism. And I'm like 2-3 days, I'm like, you're out. Okay, pack your bags, get the hell out. We're done. I was so involved with this new journey that I got on because I could see where it was going to take me.
And you
I didn't know how I was going to get there. I felt it 100%, and I could feel that was just the starting point for me. Okay. I could feel something bigger was waiting for me, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Okay. But it was strong enough for me to trust it. Trust that I lost slowly started coming back to me. And that's where I just felt so strong, so strong to the point where I could just say, in a codependent relationship that I was in, you're out. If you can't support what I do, which doesn't even affect you, then get out. We're done. 5 years down the line, we were engaged, everything. I said, get out, we're done. And I started a new journey. And then I started working on myself. I finally delved into my demons. I finally dealt with the very things that I have been running from. And I have met amazing practitioners, amazing mentors, but I was sampling everything because I wanted to know what is the best out there, what's going to help me out there. And one of the things that I realized, that as I was on my journey, what I came to realize was that no one is going to fix me. I have to fix myself. I can allow people to be facilitators, but the mistake that I made, and this is with the responsibility that we touched on, I had to own how I'm going to live my life and my future, because I got stuck in the victim mode. I got stuck in the blame mode. I had to blame someone for the mess that I created in my life. I had to, channel that anger that I felt, and I used that anger as a false sense of boundaries in my life. I thought it was confidence. It was fear. That anger was coming from a place of fear of, you're not gonna hurt me, you're not gonna say something bad to me, you're not gonna scream at me. So I would always be very defensive. To say that I had anger problems a few years back is an understatement. Like I had no problem voicing what I needed to voice. I had no problem taking someone on if I needed to. And what I slowly came to realize, that it was just a false sense of confidence. That anger was just held in place by my pain. So I learned how to channel my trauma and my all this adrenaline and all this pain into a form of anger. And I started using that to say no to people, which I never used to be able to in the past. But now, when I started healing myself, what happened was I moved from being the peacekeeping victim. I overcompensated, and I wouldn't say I was the abuser, but it was borderline. It was borderline. I became the aggressive one. I became the dominant one. It was fantastic for the work that I was in, just as I was transitioning from being in a job to starting my own business. That transition was rough. Like, even though my success skyrocketed because of that anger, because no one wanted to challenge me, no one wanted to take me on, because I was a good debater. Like, there was a lot of things that this anger served me for. But at the end of the day, I pushed everyone away. And I sat there and I'm thinking, Yvette, you said you wanted to be happy, but you're angry the whole time. How are you going to find happiness if you're angry the whole time?
But anger
I
is a
mean,
very interesting topic, actually, because I
oh,
feel a lot of
yes.
anger too, and I'm wondering, and I'm realizing that behind that it's vulnerability and it's perhaps
Absolutely.
sadness. But do you still feel anger to a degree, or?
I feel very at peace because what I did was I healed the pain that was driving the anger, number one. Number two, I healed the anger that I copied from my dad because
Okay.
I saw him using anger to get his way, to be listened to be respected, to power through his business, and to dominate the house.
Hmm.
That's so there were two anchor points for me where I use it as a form of boundary, but then I also observed as a child when you're absorbing everything in your environment. Okay, this is what you do when you want things done. Right on. I can do that. But I didn't have that pattern during my teenage years because I was the peacekeeper. I realized that keeping quiet, not getting involved with arguments, you kind of just duck and dive and go under the radar and you don't have to deal with the consequences of it. Let someone else deal with it. Right? But then I went from the place where I was and that's not even a place being healed. When you overcompensate, becoming the victim, becoming to the aggressor, that's still not being healed because that's an overcompensation. Because finally you're stepping into your power. It's such a wonderful experience, and there's this explosion of energy and just newfound boundaries coming through. But actually, you're still coming from that place of pain. And I realized, okay, wait. We need to reassess something here because I'm pushing people away. I'm sending out the exact opposite of what I want. So I need to shift something here and see what's underneath the pain.
Hmm.
And that was when I started working on the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, the emotional abuse, everything that challenged my boundaries. Everything that challenged my boundaries, I started working on that. Because that anger was because my boundaries and my sense of self was so squished and so abused and so trampled on that I felt like I had to fight to get it back.
Hmm. That
But
makes
little did I
sense.
realize I didn't have to fight for it. I just had to release the pain, and you move back into that place of authenticity, of just being, just knowing that you
So
can have that.
I'm wondering, the healing you went through, is that the
Yeah.
same process as you have written about in this book? Is that
No, but that's where
where
it
the map?
started.
Yeah, that's where it started.
That's where it started. And I remember in the previous interview when we talked, when I started working on the boundaries, which was very much connected to the sexual abuse that I went through, a practitioner left me midstream of the trauma that was activated, and she
Okay.
couldn't complete the process. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh my god, I just want to die. I just want to jump off a building. I just needed to get away from that trauma that came up, all that feelings of violation, the disgust, the shame, it was so overwhelming. It was literally like a volcano that just bursted. And I called a friend because I said, listen, I need help. I don't know how we're going to do this, but this needs to clear up now, because she actually left me like that. She said, give me a call back later if things doesn't clear up. I'm like, well, if you can't help me now, you're not going to help me later. So I needed to find someone else. So, and this person helped me to shift it, work through it. And that's when I started. And that same time, it's just perfect how it all happened. At that same time, that's when I started designing Metaphysical Anatomy. But it wasn't to a place where it was completely complete. But this was like that final key for me, where I'm realizing you don't have to relive something in order to heal it. There has to be easier metaphors. There has to be easier ways that you can access these deep traumas and feelings that's going to make you feel safe and actually release it at the same time. So that's where I started working with the sperm and the egg, for example. When I would work with people that's been sexually abused or raped, is like the sperm is coming towards the egg shell. It's close to fertilization. It's tapping. It wants to penetrate the egg. How does that feel? Oh my God, it's feeling a little bit out of control, feeling violated, invading my space. So you get to access all these feelings, but in such a gentle and controlled way. And actually explain to the other person, here's the process. Can you just talk me through this? Because I was so activated, I couldn't do it myself. And so the person helped me through the process, and things started shifting. And I started moving into that place of feeling safe. because that's a very powerful place to be in, when you can feel safe and you can look at what happened in the past. That is phenomenal. It's a very powerful place to be in.
So you're not,
but you don't have to relive it.
Right. You're not reliving it, but
No.
But what are you doing in a way? Like, maybe I'm not getting this. But
that's okay. That's okay. I'll explain it again.
About it, or?
I hear what you're saying. Yeah. I see where the miscommunication is. Sorry about that. So what you do is, when you're talking about that and you tell and you explain where the sperm is, for example, this is specifically for sexual abuse now, or someone that's been raped. And then you have the sperm coming to the egg, tap, tap, tap. And then you have that activation. The neural pathways lit up. The reptilian brain lights up. The limbic system lights up. The medulla brain lights up. The whole nervous system down the body just lights up like a Christmas tree. And the activations becomes active, because that's what you want. But just talking about it, yes, you can get to that place where it can become active. You don't have to have it activated full-blown when the person's on their knees saying, I can't deal with this anymore. I don't believe in that. I know there's people who practice that, and I respect that, but it's just not what I practice in my modality. Just knowing what that feels like, I don't want to take people through that. And
so the release part, is that by talking about it and activating?
The releasing part of that actually starts by, here's the thing where people, when you work on something and it keeps coming back.
Yeah.
It's like a thorn in your side. It keeps coming back, and you're like, damn it, I just worked on that a month ago, now it's back. Okay, that's when, because what happens is the body has this beautiful process, how it stores trauma. Now it has like this, maybe 6-7 steps, how it stores trauma. Now you have someone coming, and you have the body, and they just go, oop, I'm just going to release that energy, heavy energy there in the heart. But what about the 6 other points? What about them? So they still hold the memory. They still hold the traumatic charge. And so it's going to keep feeding back. It's going to keep coming back. And then it moves straight back into the heart area where it was released, because that's just how the body functions. It spreads, it rebalances, it realigns. Even when you release something, but there's still stuff left, the body fills it up again. So what happens is, when you release the trauma at these specific points, that is when the body just goes, whoa. That's when you have that big state of confusion, and you're like, wow, what just happened there? And the body starts to realign, because there's nothing else to hook back into. There's nothing else to remind it of what it emotionally felt like, of the emotional charge that was there. Now, and when I realized that this can actually happen, this is how the body starts to work, I started diving even deeper into the research and trying to find answers in terms of how it works. And it was quite a journey, but I made it. And it was a lot of practice. I mean, everything that I've done, everything that I've written about, the technique, I've practiced on myself, so I understand it inside and out. And that's how it all started. Like, it started a bit with a practitioner's mistake, which is fine, because I got to resolve it. But that was also a very important turning point for me. That's where things really start happening, because I'm like, if I can get into such a good and healthy emotional place in my life, then I can help other people get there. I can do the same for others. And that's when I got really excited. Like, that's when my need to achieve, but in a healthy way, not in a way where I was in the hospital anymore. It wasn't being driven from a place of, I'm going to show my dad wrong. It came from a place of, if I can feel so awesome, then I want other people to feel the same. Yeah. And I thought, how can I do that? Okay, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write about this. I'm going to write about all the conditions. Then I also looked at the book, and I'm like, how can I write a book and not reinvent the wheel? Because I don't like reinventing the wheel. If something already exists, then let it be. It exists. Praise it, give it credit, work with it. And I looked at it, and I realized, because of the experiences that I had with the trauma that came up, because there was a lot of sexual abuse in my ancestry. So that's also why I had such an oversensitivity to it. I had a huge oversensitivity to responding and reacting to the sexual abuse. That's why some people who are sexually abused, they can kind of breeze through life, like they're kind of okay, not 100% obviously, because they just suppress the trauma, but because there was such an oversensitivity for this predisposed trauma that was already there, of being violated, being abused, being physically attacked and everything, it was just like this tiny little drop that needed to fall on it, and it exploded. And then all this ramifications emotionally came out, which was just not, it wasn't just my emotional response, it's the way that ancestors felt in the past as well towards all this rape. So I realized that the emotions that came up, it wasn't just mine.
Wow.
I'm like,
That's
whoa.
powerful.
I'm like, whoa. I could feel my mom coming in. I could even feel the difference. I started feeling the difference. It took me a while to figure out how to feel the difference, but I eventually found just a simple technique to figure out the difference by feeling, okay, I'm feeling this feeling. Where in my body do I feel it? Where's the home for it?
So whose
Okay,
emotion
to my heart.
is it? It's not my emotion.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. If you feel stuck in, like, I keep releasing it, but it keeps coming back.
Wow.
It's not always that. It's not always that you missed the 6 points in the body where to heal it. It could be that it's just not yours.
Wow.
But because it was there from the day you were born, of course you're going to accept it as yours. You don't know that.
So
right?
do you
That's
feel
why
the pattern as well when you heal?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the
of
whole
course.
pattern for the ancestors. That's really powerful.
That's why also when this is you don't just heal the past. By you working on yourself, you are already making changes in your great-grandchildren, your great-great-great-great-grandchildren. I used to take my speaker's course. Your great-grandchildren. Because also remember, the dominant traumas are also coming back. It resurfaces every third generation.
Oh.
So, yes. So I had a lot of stuff that my mom was going through when she was a child, and I could feel the difference. And then there were moments where I could really feel my grandmother. Because remember, I already existed in my mom when my mom was in her mom's womb. So the programming is already starting to take place there, because in Metaphysical Anatomy, I also explain when I teach the technique, when we work on the womb and how trauma is stored in the womb and how to release that, the protein cells in the placenta lining already starts to record and absorb trauma after 72 days of you being in the womb or your mother being in the womb. The placenta is not a barrier and a protection between the mother and a child like people have said it is. It's been scientifically proven now that trauma that the mother feels can be filtered through to the fetus. So if you look at someone that has, hypertension or high blood pressure, look at the stress that the mom went through when she was pregnant with a child.
Well, it makes so sense. I mean, to me, it's kind of logical. It all is connected in a way.
Absolutely.
Can I go back to the 7 points, and maybe we can have an example? Take my voice as an example, so
sure.
latch onto something.